subtly.
Absolutely. India has to react very strongly as well, Sree. You know, there are heightened tensions between these two countries going on for a long time, especially after the abrogation of Article 370. You know, just a thought, just a perspective. We all remember, you know, the late Princess Diana and how she went about, you know, visiting poor nations, how she went about on goodwill trips, you know, to countries like Sudan and Zambia, including Pakistan, you know, almost on the lines of being a UN goodwill ambassador. But, you know, the kind of optics that we have gotten to see from William and Kate, it appears nothing short of just, you know, pure and blatant PR skills. Okay, where do you want to visit next? Okay, let's go, you know, to a depraved, let's go to a poor country, which will perhaps make us feel better about ourselves.
Absolutely. This is a pattern that emerges after the Second World War. If you look at the history from 1945 onwards, every few years, the royal family, either the king or the queen or both, will go visiting what they used to call as colonies, and then they all became members of the Commonwealth. So this is sort of like, it's like a stroking of the ego, if you will, for the royal family to feel like we are still relevant. And it's also possible that in the eyes of the British, the royalty could be losing some of their sheen, and who knows, that could be another way, this could be another way to bolster that. The other thing that I wanted to bring out is that in the United Kingdom politics, I just saw that Boris Johnson has signed the Brexit deal now. The Labour has been desperately trying to shore up its base, and in doing so, it made a huge, in my opinion, political blunder in that they said that if we come to power, we will rake up Kashmir in the United Nations. And the British Hindu community did not take kindly to that. There have been a lot of demonstrations, and now you know, the UK Labour Party is trying to walk it back, but the damage is done. So one of the biggest vote banks of the Labour is going to go away from them. And I think, you know, if Boris Johnson calls elections, which I think is going to happen soon, to just kind of like a vote of confidence for the new Brexit deal that he has signed, and if the Conservatives come back, I'm afraid that the Labour Party is going to disintegrate, and Britain will have to look for a second party, just like the way Congress is playing out in India. So the time for the kind of, you know, pandering to minorities because they get a vote bank is gone. People are now more conscious. They also are looking at social media as a source for news. So they are not going to be tied in by the mainstream media. So these are all times, these are good for people, that they have become more aware of how
Called for.
And Sree, you know, we all know that Boris Johnson, UK's new Prime Minister, expressed regret over whatever happened outside of India House. But, you know, there were two Labour Party MPs who were also involved in that demonstration, you know, which only goes to underline the UK's, you know, covert endorsement of, you know, anti-India activities. But at the same time, we did have the Quit India movement. And with UK's economy tumbling down, spiraling down, it's perhaps time to initiate you know, quit UK products kind of a movement in India as well, because they are looking for new avenues. And India being a part of the Commonwealth, you know, if we boycott, you know, importing products from the United Kingdom, it could cause them a lot of upset.
Well, the only product that India uses of the United Kingdom is their tax havens, where all the black money finds its way through. And you know, because of Brexit, some of those companies have moved shop to the mainland Europe. So the trend is already on. Britain will have to bend extra to try and just keep what they have. And for getting new business, they'll have to work extremely hard. So I think that the next elections is going to set the stage for closer UK-India relations, and I think that Conservatives will come back stronger than now, and that would also mean that the direction for Britain will be set, that this is what we need to do, and you'll start seeing a much better cooperation between Britain and India.
Have about a minute left on the show. Sree, I want you to come in and answer my question once and once again as well. Why is the UK supporting Pakistan?
It's sometimes it's been overt, sometimes it's been covert. But you go back to how Gilgit-Baltistan got separated forcibly from Jammu and Kashmir. It was a certain Brown who was a British officer who unilaterally declared independence and then allied them with Pakistan, because presumably the British wanted to have some sort of a hold or a buffer between Russia and India. And I can't understand, when you are leaving the country, let the people who have inherited it do what they want. So Britain has had this problem in the past, and now that hubris has kind of settled down a little bit, because especially the Brexit was a huge lesson for them, in that, you're not as mighty as you think, and maybe some sense will prevail. But the most important thing India also needs to do is, whenever it is trying to fight for extradition against people like Vijay Mallya, it needs to tighten up its own game. Because I'll tell you what happened in the case of Vijay Mallya. The witness statements were taken in front of a police officer instead of a magistrate, and it should have been taken in front of a magistrate. And the other interesting thing which the Vijay Mallya's counsel brought up was that these statements were identical or near identical with the same set of grammatical errors. You got to tighten up your game. I mean, this is
the rooms are empty.
No, but this is very so written it. Okay,
So this is what
I
kind of distortion
don't
which
want to
has been
reduce this to
taking
Nehru
place.
bashing. I know that we have to be critical on Nehru about certain things, but Nehru made the attempt to write the discovery of India because before that the theological argument was missing about what India was as an entity, and the British were abusing us on that fact. Sree Iyer wants to come in. Sree Iyer.
No, I'm not bashing
Yes,
Nehru.
I know, Professor Kapil Kumar. Obviously not. We've had several conversations.
Those people who distort.
Who pick and choose what is convenient. We have to stop picking and choosing.
See,
and the one
look
good
at,
thing, Sree Iyer, that Amit Shah has said today is, do not change the facts,
1907.
but rewrite the theories. So keep the facts. But we need to find, Sree Iyer, the more facts. I mean, are we talking that in the past few months, we found the DNA in Rakhi, we found the engravings in Kiladi. This is all the past few months. What were we doing for 200-300 years?
Well, for starters, let's start calling Akbar, which means the
when I
great.
said,
Yeah, let Mr. Iyer take that, Professor Kapil Kumar. Mr. Iyer.
Let's start referring to Akbar as Jalaluddin, because Akbar itself means great.
Yeah.
So let's stay with Jalaluddin for one. Second thing is, the Western historians made a huge mistake. They essentially merged the Chandragupta Maurya with the Chandragupta Gupta. So that India lost like 600 years, and that kind of threw all the dates out of whack. So if you look at the Gupta dynasty, there was Chandragupta I, Samudragupta, Chandragupta II, Kumaragupta, and then Skandagupta. So there are 5 emperors who all became really great, and then that empire started going into decline. Now, what has to really happen is, how is it that you can date Ramayana and Mahabharata? You do it by looking at the nakshatras, the stars that are described by the people who wrote these things, and you take those positions and then you put it into planetarium software. You get a fairly accurate.
No, Sree Iyer, you do that.
After that,
plus when you find a chariot in UP which is 2000 years old, you date it, you perhaps carbon date it, and you link all of these things together to form the facts. And on facts, obviously, there will be theories. The theories are welcome, but there has to be some factual basis, Mr. Iyer.
Yes, absolutely. And there's more than that. Dholavira. I mean, if you look at Dholavira, Rakhi Gadi, there are lots of things that, we need to have a plan. Like with Professor, have a plan. Okay, this is how we are going to proceed. Here are the different premises, and here are how, these are the ones that need to be factualized. And I think if you
I think there are plenty of competent people such as yourselves, as Professor Kapil Kumar. There's so many others who perhaps not part of these debates who can all pick these up. We are just performing the service here of putting this on the national agenda in the. And that's the reality of it. Sree Iyer, something fundamental, I'm hoping that the winds of change are upon us. I can almost sniff it in the air. right? We were debating Kiladi, hardly 3 weeks ago, that debate went viral. Within a week, you had the Prime Minister talking about the most ancient civilization of the Tamils. You had this entire sequence at Mahabalipuram, which has put Mahabalipuram on the map of the world, certainly of the Indians and Chinese. Now you have Amit Shah talking about it. The Vice President was talking about it. Things are moving. How do we push them harder?
For once, I think we need to really figure out how to start putting this into the textbooks. There are lots of private publications who have already published and printed these books. Bharat Gyan, for instance, they are very detailed, very interestingly related stories, and these things need to start getting into the public mind so that the children start learning it the right way. Even if it's not part of the standard curriculum, the NCERT can say suggested reading. You know, there's always a suggested reading. You can go and start reading
but
these
Sree
things.
Iyer, our curriculum is about tick marks and getting 99%. Now, I was having this conversation, Sree Iyer, on camera with Dr. Swami, and he was saying, I advise my students that, you know, when you give an exam, do what your teacher taught you, right? Because you have to get the marks. But keep your mind open for the reality, because if a student writes in their history paper that the Aryan invasion theory was false, that person will be failed.
That's true. That's true. I think the teachers also need to learn first what the real history of India is. I think we should make archaeology cool. Let's make archaeology cool. Run a campaign saying that it's time we know what our real history is, and get the private sector interested. That way you can have a public-private partnership and start.
You can't have a public-private partnership, because if you get a private contractor to work in the Red Fort, it becomes a national debating